All right, so we are popping on for another late night video, and we are here today on the East Coast, and the Tennessee Titans are the first to draw blood from a stone, so to say. The Tennessee Titans, interesting analogy, I guess. The Tennessee Titans select as their head coach for 2023. They select Brian Callahan, offensive coordinator, Cincinnati Bengals, offensive coordinator Brian Callahan. An Ohio native goes south a couple of hours to Nashville, to the Music City. Nashville, a place that is a fast-rising city. I'm sure that you guys all know about people in your own personal lives that have moved to Nashville, Tennessee. And for the Tennessee Titans, though, let's talk about the job and what's ahead. So Rand Carfron is somebody that was in the 49ers front office. Him and owner Amy Scrunk, they did not get along with Mike Vrabel very well, especially Rand Carfron and Mike Vrabel. Last year, we had John Robinson. After the A.J. Brown trade, he got dismissed last year. So really, this team right now, they don't really have A1 players. I mean, you have DeAndre Hopkins, who's all right. Jeffrey Simmons is probably your best player, who's a defensive tackle. But this is a 4-win team. You have a second-round quarterback in Will Levis, who right now, in my opinion, is not a top 25 quarterback. Will Levis, to me, is not going to be a top 25 quarterback. He is not going to be a consistent starter. If Will Levis proves me wrong, he does. I don't like his throwing mechanics. I don't think he's very accurate. I think he turns the ball over. I wouldn't have selected him in the NFL draft in the first 3 rounds, maybe as a 4th-round guy. Now, he did perform objectively well against the Falcons. Against the Dolphins, he had a heroic comeback. His personality, he's a very likable leader. He's somebody that shows a lot of passion out there. So I do hope that I am wrong. A part of me hopes that I am wrong about Will Levis. And I think that the popular sentiment on Levis was that he wasn't that good at Kentucky. He has a big arm, kind of combine guy. And I just don't think he's that accurate. I think he's going to make some mistakes and throw some turnovers. You got to have a power run game. Now, Derrick Henry's about 30 years old. Your best wide receiver that you selected in the first round, Treylon Burks, who was outstanding at Arkansas. You can just ask Sam Pittman. That's probably why Sam is still employed, was because of that 2019-2020 Arkansas team with Treylon Burks. Again, love Treylon Burks, but he can't stay healthy. And Treylon Burks is going to have to be somebody that emerges. Tajay Sharp as well. So the Tennessee Titans, the cupboard is pretty damn bare in Tennessee. You look at Joe Burrow, a quarterback that Brian Callahan has been around. He was around Peyton at the end in Denver with Adam Gase and Gary Kubiak in that offense. All right. And then he was also with, Stafford, I want to say, in Detroit. So he's a West Coast offense guy. All right. He kind of comes from Kubiak, and Kubiak is a real West Coast style. His dad is West Coast, wants to throw it around the yard, okay? His dad was the polar opposite of what Frank Solich was and what Tom Osborne was, and it was oil and water, or oil and vinegar, I guess. And at Nebraska, that thing was a colossal failure with his dad. But Bob Callahan, the thing about him is that he was still a really good NFL head coach, and he still had some success as a coach. I think it was an offensive line coach. Bill Callahan, this is Brian Callahan. So, again, if your dad is a stud coach, okay, it didn't work in Nebraska, so it didn't work for Scott Frost. It didn't work for Mike Riley at Nebraska either, okay? So The point is with this hire is this is like, in terms of the guys on the market, I mean, Ben Johnson and Mike McDonald, to me, are two of the best candidates that we've seen in a long time because, Mike McDonald's from the Harbaugh tree, succeeded at every turn. He's ahead of the game defensively. Ben Johnson offensively. I think that both of them are going to get hired. I think Ben's going to get hired. I see Harbaugh going to the Chargers. Again, Tennessee's kind of in a rebuilding state. They really are rebuilding, but you have a lot of freedom, I believe, with Rand Carfron. I believe the owner's going to give you a runway to do your thing. And Rand wants a partner in crime, and he gets Brian Callahan. Callahan's been around Joe Burrow, but this thing can obviously fail. I mean, first off, Zac Taylor had a lot of offensive influence there. Secondly, it's Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow can run on computer mode, and you saw what happened with Joe Brady. You saw what happened with Brady. That thing did not turn up. So for Brian Callahan, I believe that he needs a really good quarterback that he's going to like to work with. And I look at Bo Nix. I think he's the most underrated quarterback in this class. I think that Bo's played so many downs of football. Again, he's played like the most college games. Really, really accurate quarterback. And somebody that just from a leadership and from a schematic standpoint, Bo Nix knows just about everything. He lived in the South. He lived in the fishbowl, which was Auburn, battled that adversity and came back strong. And Bo is very mobile, very smart with the football, has to throw guys open at Oregon. Michael Penix outdueled Bo. Michael Penix, you could argue, especially this year, was a better quarterback than Bo. I don't know about for his career. Maybe take Bo because Bo is a little bit better than Penix maybe at Indiana. It's very close. But this year Penix was better. But Michael Penix, to me, throws a lot of interceptions, and he throws up a lot of 50-50 balls. And I think in the West Coast offense, I think that Bo could be a better pro than Michael Penix, just like Brock Purdy is a better pro than he was in college at Iowa State, where he would not win games at a high clip. But anyway, so what's Brian Callahan going to do on offense? The other thing is with Rand Carfron is I'm a little surprised that they did not interview like a defensive guy, and they're not going the defensive route because Tennessee and Mike Vrabel plays really, really good defense. And the thing about rebuilding a team is that you could build a hard-nosed defensive team. So, Brian Callahan in the interviewing process, there's so many great offensive minds that are out there. I look at Wes Phillips as a smart offensive mind. Kellen Moore's been an offensive coordinator, and Kellen Moore's had to call plays for a really long time. And again, Joe Burrow got injured this year, and I guess you can attribute Jake Browning's success to Brian Callahan, but is Brian Callahan going to be able to build this from the ashes? Is he going to be able to put in defensive players? Is he going to build an entire culture as a head coach, or is he just strictly a play caller? There's so many guys in the NFL that are just play callers. O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, McVay, Shanahan. These are really good offensive minds. Zac Taylor, they all revolve around the quarterback. But again, who really has excellent scheme? Who's been in multiple systems? To me, even Callahan to me is just like a C higher or C minus higher. Joe Brady's an even more interesting candidate. Arthur Smith would have rebuilt your team. I think Arthur builds through the trenches better than a Callahan will. And unless you get a quarterback that really vibes with Callahan, that offense is not going to look very good. So it's a really tough job. You're putting yourself in a position to fail by taking the job, but it's a rebuilding job, so you need patience. It's kind of exactly like Carolina, all right? But the thing is, Will Levis is a second-round pick. You're not married to Will Levis, okay? It's very much a quarterback situation that you can come in there and do your job. In terms of if you don't like Levis, you can ultimately move on. But you're going to look at the draft. You're going to look at free agency for a quarterback, build the defense. What you could do is build the defense, would not overspend on a Kirk Cousins, would not spend a ton of free agent money, would clean out a lot of the veteran contracts, kind of like what you did with Kevin Byard, clean out And you hate to say the word rebuild. You could say the word retool. But you're going to have to retool this roster. You're going to have to remake the roster and build it from scratch with young players. You're not ready now with the young core. You need to draft the young core, and Rand Carfron and Brian Callahan are going to get a chance to do that. Also, who else was in demand really for Callahan? I know he got a couple of interviews. He wasn't as in high demand as Belichick, Harbaugh, Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald. I'm trying to even I know Brady. Dave Canales is probably a hotter name right now on the market as well. I think Callahan is fine. I think Callahan is decent. He's going to put in a West Coast offense. Bobby Slowick, interestingly, interviewed with the Titans as well. The point is that maybe Bobby Slowick thought, I could stay with C.J. Stroud. We can have another tremendous year, and then I'll get the job that I really, really want with a quarterback, with ownership, with things that I really, really adore. So in Tennessee, it's dire, but it's also fun in the chance that you get to rebuild and you're going to get a lot of freedom with your general manager. It's not like you're tied into a Russell Wilson contract. You're going to get to draft your quarterback. Every player's expandable on the roster. You're going to be able to build your whole thing. But going from Vrabel to Callahan's going to be certainly a difference. You know, Callahan's going to be with the offensive side of the ball. Callahan's probably going to be calling plays, I would maybe imagine. But again, Zac Taylor and Joe Burrow were really in charge in Cincinnati. So, again, I liked other people in the cycle. I liked Kellen Moore in the cycle. I even like an Arthur Smith that can build you a team. I'm trying to think defensively. I think Todd Monken maybe would have been really interesting. Todd's probably going to be a championship coach. Matt Nagy again is like I got her retread higher, but in the sense that Matt Nagy probably learned a lot from his time in Chicago, and now he's in Kansas City. So maybe you can get a coach that has a better second stint in the league. Dan Quinn. I like Dan Quinn's energy. I think Dan Quinn can have really good defense. I'm worried about defense in Tennessee. I'm also worried. I am worried about what are they going to do offensively? What are they going to do at quarterback? You're relying on Rand Carfron, who is, again, a really young general manager, and now you're relying on a head coach that kind of was just an assistant there with Zac Taylor. And the same critiques could have been made to Cincinnati about Zac Taylor, but Zac Taylor did have good offense with Joe Burrow, and he got that right, and he is a pretty dang good coach, and Lou Arigmu is a good defensive guy. So Brian, by all accounts, seems like a good guy. It's kind of an interesting hire. It's not going to win the pressers. It's not going to win these sorts of things. It's not controversial probably in the least. I think they have to be creative at quarterback and how they rebuild this roster. I would look at a Drew Lock at quarterback or a Bo Nix, and then I would look at a wide receiver like a Malik Neighbors, a Brian Thomas to maybe pair with a DeAndre Hopkins so your offense can have a pulse. And then defensively continue to build and continue to invest young. And this general manager, Rand Carfron, is going to have to build this from the ashes right now because this is one of the toughest jobs in the NFL. It's a job that needs time. You need about 3 or 4 years to win, and you're also in a division that has really good coaches and quarterbacks, I believe. Trevor Lawrence, really good quarterback. Ryan Nielsen's a nice hire. C.J. Stroud, great quarterback. You have Lawrence and Stroud that are two young, top 2 picks at quarterback that both have big arms, both can be mobile and accurate. These quarterbacks are going to be starters in the NFL for a long time, barring injury. Anthony Richardson has potential ceiling that is star level. And Shane Steichen, with a backup quarterback in Gardner Minshew, did such an admirable job. What was it, going 9-7 this year? almost making the playoffs. Shane Steichen did a really nice job, and you saw the value of Steichen if you watched that Eagles offense second half of the year. So he's a really good coach. Doug Peterson's won a Super Bowl, and Doug Peterson made the playoffs last year, so Doug can be a good coach. And DeMeco Ryans is the coach of the year, seems like the future. So the division is underratingly getting harder in Tennessee. And the team is nowhere ready to win. They don't have the weapons. They don't have the quarterback, I believe. They don't have offensive line. Defensive line's probably good. Secondary again. So they don't have frontline Pro Bowl talented players. And that's probably why Vrabel bounced. And I think for Vrabel it was smart because, honestly, Tennessee, they haven't really built that well through the draft. And they're a roster that I think is 3 or 4 years away. But we're going to see. I mean, you can call plays. The good news about Callahan's offense is it's his offense. So you don't have to run into a problem like Ben Johnson or Todd Bowles having Dave Canales. It is your offense. And they talked to Slowick, and Callahan impressed them enough. So, again, I'm giving it a C. I think it's fine. If Callahan wins there, if Brian Callahan wins there in Tennessee with Rand Carfron, with Amy Scrunk, this administration should get unbelievable, glowing reviews. He can be one of the best coaches in Titans history. Okay? Vrabel made it to an AFC title game. Vrabel had the number 1 seed, kept them kind of competitive, was a really decent coach. I don't think that again, we're going to build a statue of Mike Vrabel outside of Tennessee. He didn't bring them home a championship. Outside of that 1 year, they didn't win a playoff game, I believe, outside of the year in which they won 2 games. So that's where we're kind of at with the Tennessee Titans. Brian Callahan. What do you guys think about this hire? I'm giving it a C hire. Total wait and see. It's Joe Burrow. I mean, Joe Burrow, it could be like Adam Gase when Peyton Manning said hire Adam Gase. Joe Burrow's mind works like a computer. He could pretty much almost run an offense himself. Zac Taylor's over there. We really haven't seen Brian Callahan, but we're going to give him a chance, right? I'm going to give him a chance. But again, I think that there's some great coaches on the market, like Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald, Arthur Smith, I think could build a team and be better in the second stop. Matt Nagy's pretty interesting as a candidate. Dan Quinn, I mentioned. Kellen Moore, Todd Monken. There are probably 8 to 10, but Slowick. Then you get into your Slowick, Canales, and he's probably a top 13 name because of how Jake Browning, because of Joe Burrow and Browning, and because he's been the OC there, and because since he's been really relatively successful. And again, it's an offensive coach where Lou Rigmu is older, and Callahan also having his dad be a coach in the NFL. You could say it's nepotism, but I don't believe his dad got him the Tennessee job. It's an advantage that you need to utilize. It's a resource when you grow up in it, just like Earl Woods taught Tiger, or just like Mahomes' dad played Major League Baseball. Del Curry, Steph, like, I don't hate on that at all. I really try to not hate at all, but you shouldn't. But it's an advantage, and it can make you, it could create experiences for you, and you could see the game from an earlier age. So Brian Callahan, again, a great guy. By all accounts, a really good guy. And this could be really fun in Tennessee. I think, too, that the national media and Tennessee's a smaller market, Callahan's going to be under the radar. It will be fun to monitor this team because this is like a smaller market, and Callahan doesn't have the name and the appeal of Harbaugh or Bill Belichick or one of these swore by names. So that's why it's even going to be more fun to root for, to see if he could really be outstanding and buck all of the trends right now. And again, it could be an interesting build. This in Carolina is ultimate build. And let's see what happens. And let's see if the owner gives this coach and GM some time, and let's see how their relationship will unfold. Rand Carfron, Brian Callahan, and Amy Scrunk. All right, Titans.